Hello and welcome to a journey of discovery, a journey of the mind, a journey of the fingers, a journey of music, a journey of the guitar. I'm Doug, and I suppose that's the first thing anyone will ever see or hear me say on the internet, that terrible introduction right there. But I stand by it. This is the first lesson that I'm going to ask any student of mine to watch after their first class. You're going to hear a lot of repetition from what you learned in your first class, and that's fine. Repetition is the spice of life? No, that's not true. Sometimes. I suppose with music it sort of is. So, the goals of this first video are short. And it should be short. This introduction should be short, for goodness sakes. You'll find I have a tendency to talk. No, I want to walk you through the basic, the typical introduction, which there are probably thousands online. I'll try to bring a little humor to it and all that jazz. What you're going to get today is we're going to talk about the parts of the guitar. If you are truly new to the instrument, you have to know certain words. And I'm not going to assume that you do. If you feel like you really, truly know how to put your third finger on the third fret of the B string, you can skip this. But for a lot of my students, they're going to be first-timers, youngins, or older folk who just decided to learn guitar, which is great too. So anyway, the anatomy of the guitar. I want to tell you a little bit, a very little bit, I promise, about posture, ergonomics. How to position yourself and your instrument when you're playing. And I suppose we can call that technique. I don't have great technique. I don't have very trained technique. I play quite a bit of guitar, and I've taught myself a bunch, and I've taken plenty of lessons over the years, but I've never really, I never went to music school. So I'm certain that any properly trained musician would look at certain things I do and say, that's odd, or that's going to hurt in 20 years, like wrist stuff, how I hold my hand. And so I'll try not to pass along what I know are my idiosyncrasies, but I don't know, for the most part, I think I hold myself the right way. Anyway, then we're going to get into actual music and pick up the guitar and look at how our 12-tone music system, it's only 12 notes. It's kind of funny when you think about it. How every song you've really ever heard, with the exception of, there are cultures that use microtonal scales, and, Americans who compose like that. But generally, anything you hear on the radio, it's only 12 notes. Yeah, maybe that's news to you. Maybe it's not. So anyway, I'll tell you a bit about the 12-tone system and how it exists on the neck of your guitar. At the same time, you're going to have to learn about open strings. And at that point, you're going to want a pencil, paper, and all that jazz. You're going to want a pencil, paper, a straight edge would be good, ruler, yeah. And let's see, after that, I'm going to show you your first chords. Chords simply when you play, 3 or more notes on an instrument. And I'm going to show you, I'm going to show you 5 chords that can let you play a lot of songs. A lot of songs. Whole careers have been built on them. And then we're going to go to some of our first picking. You can strum, ring, or you can pick. I'm a finger stylist. I know how to use a pick fairly well. That's somewhere where my technique, might not be as sharp as others, because I do tend to play classical. But we'll look at, how to actually pluck individual strings, and I'll give you a couple exercises. And lastly, but not leastly, power chords. One of the greatest gifts the rock gods ever gave the world. It is very, very simple chords. Physically simple, harmonically simple, that you can play on the lower strings of your instrument, be it an acoustic or an electric. So anyway, that's enough of that. 4 minutes, 42 seconds. I was hoping to get in and out of this thing in about 3. Anyway, we're going to get right to it by looking at the guitar itself and parts. And that's it. Here we go. And now, class, a lesson in anatomy. Anatomy, like body parts and stuff. But don't worry, no dissections. Just a walk through this fine instrument and a quick discussion of how your guitar might look different. There are quite a few different types of guitar. All right, so I will almost always be on this channel and in our lessons be playing a classical guitar. A classical guitar has some characteristics that other guitars don't, including these strings are, the top three strings are just nylon, plastic, and the bottom ones are wound nylon, I assume. But anyway, they don't have steel strings like a typical acoustic or a typical electric. It's got a different sound. My neck's a little bit wider here than most guitars you'd pick up, most steel string guitars you'd pick up. And I attempt to play all sorts of different things with this instrument, but it is kind of associated with classical music, which I do enjoy playing quite a bit. So anyway, this is a 6-string nylon guitar, all right? Ready, set, from the top to the bottom, head or headstock, okay? Head or headstock. If I ever, say, oh, you need to move your hand towards the headstock or towards the head of the guitar. I'm talking about this thing. Kind of looks like a head. The whole thing kind of looks like a person. These are machine heads, they're called. That is a funny name and an awesome song by Bush from the early 90s when I was a kid. So these are machine heads, and they tune your guitar. You can call them tuners, but if you want to sound cool, it'd be like machine heads or tuners. Maybe you don't sound cool when you say machine heads, but you got 6 of them because you got 6 strings, and that's about that. Okay, we'll talk about tuning the guitar some other time, not in this video. Okay, moving on. Some finer points. This little piece here, often plastic. On really nice guitars, you might see bone, ivory. Well, not ivory anymore. Ooh, maybe on old instruments. But this is called the nut. All right. And then the neck. This is the neck of your guitar. And the neck of your guitar has been finely divided very carefully into different frets. All right. So I have sat down to lessons early on when I was teaching, and people don't know what I mean when I say, oh, it's the 3rd fret. Okay, so let's just make sure that's clear. When I pluck a string like this, that's an open string. I'm not pressing anything. No. That's an open string. However, what's nice about the guitar is that you can press down your finger in any of these little areas, and you either raise or lower the note, depending on whether you go higher on the string or lower on the string. Okay? So this is the 1st fret. Boop, boop. This is the 2nd fret. 3rd fret, 4th fret, 5th fret, 6th fret, 7th fret. Guess what's next? 8th fret, 9th fret, 10th fret, 11th fret, on and on and on. You might have some markings on certain frets. My neck does not. Classicals generally don't. I've got some dots on the side of my guitar neck that tell me where the 3rd, the 5th, the 7th, the 9th, and the 12th are, and that just helps in navigating. Some folks actually don't have any at all. I've picked up guitars without any markers, but it'll help you as you get used to finding your way to the 5th or finding your way to the 7th. Okay, enough of that. Headstock, machine heads or tuners, nut, neck, frets, and, well, I guess we could go into the body. Your body might look a little different. Mine has a cutaway. It's a little bit smaller. It's smaller than, say, what's called typical dreadnought steel string guitar, which I have one of those, and I might take it out for a lesson or something. But this one is a classical with a cutaway, so I can have easier access to these higher frets, like above the 12th. And those strings come down here. The little, a very important part, maybe the most essential part of the guitar, they're all pretty essential, is this little piece right here. This is called the saddle. And it's important because that's where the vibrations of the strings are transferred into the wood of the body and projected out to your adoring fans. That saddle is set in a larger piece of wood called the bridge. And I think that's all I'm going to say. There are other names. These are bouts. Bouts, upper bouts, lower bouts. But I think that's all you really need, all right? So those are the parts in your guitar. Maybe you've got an electric. Basically, all those terms still apply, okay? Basically, all those terms still apply that I just went through. Maybe you've got a steel string acoustic. Yeah, it's basically the same. There are differences in how you treat the instruments, obviously how they sound, but that's the basic anatomy of a guitar. So, yeah, let's move on. Okay. I'm glad you... Oh, I better not fall into the okay hole. That'd be terrible. That would be awful. We're moving on to posture, and this one will be even shorter.